Video 14 for Fitness with Gerry. We're going to review some standing stretches that you can do whenever you want, every day or every other day. Could be an addition to a walk that you go on regularly, especially if you have a nice spot with a view of the river or the ocean or the mountains, or you can do it in your office at work. If you have an office, take a 10-minute break, up off your chair and do these stretches. If you don't have an office, you can do it perhaps in a stairwell, which has a little bit of privacy. Or you can do it while watching TV. Just understand that you're going to be distracted with the TV show while you're doing the stretches. I hope this video to be less than 10 minutes, but you can take your time. If you have 20 minutes to stretch, you can do these positions for longer and give yourself a 20-minute stretch. One of the benefits of stretching is the relaxation aspect. Life is usually stressful, and if you can take a few moments to stretch, release the stress, your body will be happier, your mind will be clearer. So let's get started. First one is going to be for the spine. There are 6 ways, general ways, that the spine can move. Forwards, backwards, side, side, twist, twist. Really important that the spine stays strong, flexible, and supple, like a cat. So the first one is going to be bending forward. I'll go sideways so you can see. So my feet are almost together, toes pointing forward. First movement is bringing the chin to your chest, and then try and imagine each vertebrae from top to bottom curls as you give yourself a forward bend. If your hands cannot reach the ground, you can raise the ground with a stool, or you can do it by a step, because it's important that the weight of the upper body is supported by the ground or the stool so that your muscles can relax. And you can hold this position for a minute or two. If you hold this position for a long time, I suggest you come up like this for a few moments before standing back up, to minimize the chance of any kind of dizziness that you would otherwise get. Because right here there's a lot of blood flow into the brain, especially if you have a low blood pressure. So crouch down, bend the knees for a few moments, let the blood remove itself from your brain. Then go back into the forward bend, and then reverse the movement. Chin stays on your chest. The lower vertebrae straighten up first, and then you come back up to standing. Okay? The second movement for the spine is backwards. So, putting your hands on the lower back, fingers up or down, whatever's comfortable for you. And the hands at the lower back are used to hold the weight of the upper body. So keeping the abdominals slightly active to protect compression of the lower back. You're going to lift the chin now and come into a back bend for whatever distance is comfortable for you. And holding the weight with your hands allows you to hold the position for longer. And pushing into the back, I can also open up the chest. Also really good for opening up the throat. Many people, when they do that, they get a tickle in the throat and they have to cough. That's normal. Don't worry about it. Do your cough and then go back into the stretch. And then come back up to standing. And there's your backwards bend. That one's a bit more tricky, a bit more dangerous than the forward bend, so I wouldn't hold it for the 1 or 2 minutes that I suggested with the forward bend. Try 20 seconds, come back up, relax yourself, and then do it again. It's really easy to compress on those vertebrae at the back. The next two for the spine are side to side. So one way to do it is with your hands above your head. Sorry, you can't see my hands. I usually put my fingers in this position, interlaced with the index fingers pointing up. And then a slight bend in the knees. And I am just going to do kind of a banana type shape as this hip comes out a little bit to include the whole spine in this sideways bend. And it's important that both arms are reaching straight up to minimize compression and compaction on this side of the ribs. And then come on up, and then you would balance on the other side. Let me show you sideways. I'm going to put my hands in a different position, arms in a different position, just so that you can have a second choice. And you'll see that I'm not moving forwards or backwards. I'm trying to stay in line. You can imagine there's a brick wall right in front of you and behind you. So you have no room to move sideways. Now with this one, my left elbow is pulling up, and my right elbow also pulling up. And then come back up to standing. Okay? Now the last two of the 6 general movements for the spine is twisting. And I just had a bit of air bubble come up. So that's what happens when you're moving the spine. You're also massaging the organs. My stomach obviously had a bit of air from before. And the movement forced that air to come up and remove itself, which is a good thing. So arms can be out like this, and trying to keep the hips pointing forward, you're just going to rotate at the shoulders, going as far as you comfortably can, and don't necessarily move more if you think you're supposed to, because then you're also going to be moving the hips. Try and keep the hips pointed forward, and your head, if you want to include the neck in the twist, you can have it look at that arm behind you. And then come back to center. And here's another way to do the twist. I have my right hand and arm behind my back. My left hand is on my shoulder. Still keeping the hips pointing forward. I am going to rotate my right shoulder backwards and actively keeping my right hip rotated forwards. And I can look over that right shoulder to include the neck in this rotation. Okay, so that's the first part of a standing stretch. When people ask me what should I stretch, I say always focus on your spine. So if you have 5 minutes, you can do those 6 positions for the spine during those 5 minutes, and your body will be healthier. Your organs will have received a little bit of a massage, gently twisting and squishing. The organs usually have some kind of scar tissue and are also a receptacle for stress. So if you can massage them, they'll be happier, they will be rejuvenated. So let's go into another stretch, really good for anyone who's walking and also anyone who has to sit down a lot. We're going to do stretch this part of the hip called the hip flexor, and the other back side of the hip called the hip extensor. And this is a kind of a balanced position, so maybe you're more comfortable having a chair beside you. So this is already giving a nice stretch on those two areas. And you can hold this position if you find yourself teetering back and forth. Then you're also developing the stabilizer muscles for your hip, knee, and ankle. And you can stay here for a moment or two or 30 seconds. And then bending the front knee just a little bit, you're going to increase the stretch in the hip flexor and also a little bit more in the back of the hip, and also now the right glute muscle, the butt muscle. So this one you can hold another 30 seconds, and then you can also bend that back knee, so you're going to change the stretch a little bit, mostly in that left calf. And holding it for however long you want to. And then let's try going forward a little bit. This front knee, it's really important that you keep it a little bit bent. I have my hands on my hips, and I'm just going to come forward. So now I'm getting a stretch. I can feel it all the way past my knee into my calf and coming up alongside all the way up to above my hip. Always keeping this front knee a little bit bent, because if I am fully locked straight with that front leg, I'm putting a lot of strain on the back knee ligament. And then come back up, and then we have to repeat on the other side. What I haven't mentioned, I don't think, in these videos is I'm trying to guide you, teach you, but I would prefer if you, and it would be better for you, if you decide how long you want to stay in these positions. So please press the pause button after you've received the instruction, and that way you can spend as much time as you want in each position. So now we've rotated, now we're doing the exact same but for the opposite side. So now the right hip flexor is getting a stretch, and the left hip extensor, the back of the hip, is getting a stretch. And the little bit of movement that's being created from this unstable position is developing the hip, knee, and ankle, and also the muscles around the toes. So then we went to a bend of the front knee, increasing the stretch in the hip flexor and also the hip extensor and the butt muscle on the left side. And now bending that back knee a little bit. You're going to feel above the right knee, but also the right calf muscle. And trying to stay as relaxed and rhythmic as possible with your breathing. If you can, bring the breath down into the belly. That will be useful. And then straightening those legs, keeping the hips pointing in that direction. Hands can be on your hips. That front knee is bent. And you're just going to come forward, feeling the stretch now on the back of the left leg. And if I push my right heel towards the ground, I also get the right calf stretch. Making sure this front knee is always a little bit bent. And then coming back up. and rotating back to facing forward. Now let's try a stretch for the bum muscle and the legs. So keeping your legs a little bit wide and rotating the ankles so that the toes are pointing outwards. Just lower yourself as much as you can comfortably. And if you can reach the ground with your hands or use a stool or a step, and then straighten the legs, let the head fall down, and walking the hands to one foot, or if you're on the step, your hands will be up here. Let your head go towards your right shin. And then walking the hands back to the middle and balancing on the other side, letting the head fall and relax. And then coming back to center. Now we'll do a combination twist. So my right hand is directly below my face. I am lifting with that right hand, and the left fingers will point upwards, full range of motion. You'll have your fingers pointing to the ceiling, but many people, their range of motion provides enough to go somewhere here. Trying not to force it, keep equal weight on both feet. And to include the neck, look up at that hand. And then return that hand back to the ground. Again, if you're on the stool, you would be up here on the stool. If you have the range of motion, the flexibility, you can put your hand on the ground, making sure also with this one that the knees are always slightly bent. Keep the shoulders relaxed. Rhythmic breathing. And looking up at that hand with those fingers pointed to the ceiling or to the corner, whatever kind of range of motion that you have today. And then come back. As with the forward bend we did at the beginning, it's important to just put yourself into this position to have that blood that was in your brain now flow downwards with gravity to minimize any chance of fainting or dizziness. Okay, and then let's come back up. Okay, so really good. You should feel a lot more open now in the hip area and the legs. Let's do a little bit of upper body stretching. So for the arms and this part of the outside lateral muscles, you're going to bend. Let's do the left arm first. So I have my left arm bent. You can see my hand is between my shoulder blades. I'm just going to grab my left elbow. It's actually a little bit above my left elbow. And I am going to put my legs kind of attached together. Knees are a little bit bent. And we can also include a sideways bend for the spine. Keeping as relaxed as possible. Important that the right elbow still pulls upwards so you're not compressing on those ribs at the right side. And you can push gently your head backwards into your hand. It'll develop those muscles that we are changing because of the position of always having shoulders rounded forward. Playing video games, texting on your phone, sitting while traveling, sitting while working, watching TV, eating dinner. Really nice stretch, opens up in between the ribs. And gently bring yourself back up. Let's switch hands and do the same thing on the other side. So now my left hand is grabbing right here on my right tricep. My right hand is in between my shoulder blades. Legs together, knees slightly bent. And I am trying to move directly sideways without bringing the shoulders into any kind of rotation. So directly sideways, my left elbow now is pulling as much as possible, comfortably, upwards to minimize compression on the left side of my ribs, and my right side of my ribs are getting a really nice stretch, opening up some space in between those ribs. And coming back up. And releasing on the arms, come back down, let everything relax for a little bit. And now let's try and stretch between the shoulder blades. So the most common one that people know, so I'm going to take my right arm and connect it with my left arm. You can see that my left elbow, the inside is on the outside of my right elbow. And using my left arm, I am just going to try and bring my right arm as close to my chest, squishing into my chest to try and open up the space that's between my spine and my right shoulder blade. And another addition to this one is just bend the elbow. So now both fingers are pointing upwards, both sets of fingers pointing upwards. And then release on that stretch. Relax the muscles. And then same thing. Now the outside of my left elbow is on the inside of my right elbow, and using my right arm to bring my left arm as close to my body as possible. Now getting the opening between my spine and left shoulder blade. And then that extra addition, bending the left elbow. The fingers are pointing upwards. And part of the stretching, as mentioned in the beginning, is the relaxation, which is definitely helped if you're able to keep to a nice rhythmic, gentle breathing. So let's release on that. Now connecting the hands behind your back, interlacing the fingers. Just keeping the palms together. You're going to raise the arms and open up the chest muscles and the shoulders and the front of the arms. Bringing your arms up as high as is comfortable. And many times I'll also rotate the wrists, open up the hands, and now I feel the stretch in the hands and the fingers and also the forearm. It's important to try not to arch the back too much. Try and keep it neutral, pelvis tilted under. And relax, holding that position for 30 seconds or longer, maybe taking a break and repeating it. And now same thing, but with the hands forward, we're going to close a little bit the chest muscles, but open the muscles in the back between the shoulder blades. So I am pulling forward with my hands, and many times I'll also bend my head forward. And if you try and pull your hands apart without letting them move, you'll feel an extra stretch, an extra pull between the shoulder blades. And that one's similar, 30 seconds or longer, take a break, do it again. And the final stretch series for this standing stretch video is going to be for the neck. As with the spine, the neck has 6 general movements: forward, backward, side, side, rotation both ways. So the first one is I'm just bringing my chin to my chest, allowing the shoulders to relax. I also just felt my ears relax right by the jaw joint. And then lifting up the chin, let's go into a backwards bend for the neck. Imagine you're lifting the chin, and if you go far enough back, the head will rest on the shoulders, and it's also opening up the throat. And gently lifting the head back up, and you can repeat that forward bend and the back bend of the neck as many times as you think is comfortable. And then going sideways with the neck now, I'm bringing my right ear towards my right shoulder. With this one, when I teach it, I find a lot of people are also rotating your head. So maybe in the beginning it's a good idea to look in a mirror to see that you're not rotating your head, or even a window or some kind of reflective surface. And I'm also feeling a stretch right here all the way past the shoulder. And then come back up, and then we'll repeat on the other side. Now my left ear going towards my left shoulder. No rotation happening in the head. Bringing my right shoulder down. And then coming back up. And now the last two, rotating. So without forcing, as far as you comfortably can, you're going to try and bring your chin above your right shoulder. And then return to center. And now rotating, bringing your chin above your left shoulder. Okay, and that's going to be it, I think, for this version of standing stretches. We might do more videos with the standing stretches. But just to repeat, please take your time. If you can do this 20 minutes every other day or every day, it's great to do a stretching session after waking up, also before you sleep. or before exercise or after exercise. Just be a bit more gentle. Don't go too deep with a stretch before, during, or after. I usually set aside 20 or 25 minutes just to stretch. My philosophy is always be stretched. So thanks for watching, and be gentle, stay with the breathing, and enjoy.